Hello, Dental 18 listeners. This is Kiera, and today I am so jazzed. I have one of my absolute favorite guests back on the podcast, Morgan Hamon. He used to be with HDA. They have now upgraded their name to EAG Dental Advisors. Super excited. He's an incredible CPA, does all things dental, loves airplanes. He's been on the podcast so many times. We've had some good chats. Dear friend to me, Morgan, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Kiera, I'm doing good. It is so great to be with you and looking forward to our conversation today.
You and me both. So I have to know, since you love airplanes and it's in your background, are
Mhm.
you a fan or not a fan of Top Gun? I just need to know.
I have a soft spot for that movie because when it came out in 1986, I was 15,
Mm.
and I sort of set my sight. That definitely influenced me. I said, that's what I want to do. So I went out and did it. And so
So then how did you like Top Gun Maverick? Like, was the
that
second,
one,
tell me,
the
are you a fan?
purpose of that movie was entertainment, and it was entertaining, but it was a little you gotta suspend disbelief a little bit. It was a little nostalgic because that was set in Naval Air Station Lemoore, which is where I was for 8 years. So it was pretty cool seeing and the flying scenes were real. And so they were
Mm-hmm.
all filmed out. It's called Restricted Area 2508, which is where we always used to fly. So it was pretty nostalgic seeing some of the flying scenes back where we used to go fly. But
Oh.
technically, there's a little, like any movie, there's a little Hollywood going on
Yeah.
there, but it was entertaining.
How cool though that they like made a spot for Iceman with him having
Yes.
throat cancer. I thought that was incredible. Like, way to go, Tom Hanks.
Yep.
So I know you guys didn't come to the podcast to hear Morgan and I talk about Top Gun, but we're gonna segue now because Morgan is all things. We love to talk profit. We love to talk taxes. We love to talk all things nerding out on CPA land, which I
Hmm.
have really truly fallen in love with, like understanding my numbers. So this is a soft spot for me. But Morgan said he wanted the topic today, which I think is a sexy topic, and I cannot wait, where he said leadership relates to profitability. And I said, Morgan, sign me up. Here we go. So, Morgan, this is our time. This is our topic, because I absolutely agree with you that leadership does relate to
Hmm.
profitability. But take it away. And then we're going to dig into tax savings. We're going to dig into
Yes.
all the stuff, and who knows where else we're going to go. But it'll be a great one. It
Well, I think
always is.
this topic has evolved with me a little bit, and because we've been doing this, 15 years and going now, and so a lot of conversations over the years. And I've always thought about, profitability, which, let's face it, that's why we own businesses. Okay, we don't own businesses to pay tax. We own
Yeah.
businesses to make a nice living and have some control over our lives. So you've got to have profit, and it's hard owning a business. So if we don't have adequate profit, why bother? Um, so our mission has always been to really focus on profit, give our doctors feedback on what that profit is, and diagnose if things are if there's something that could put more money in their pocket. Now, with my CPA hat on, right, there's two parts of that profit equation. There's the expense side of the equation and the revenue side of the equation. And so for a lot of years, and that's where our focus has been. But I've recently, last year or two, I've really come to the conclusion, look, there's a third component there, right? And it's
Ooh,
not
I
it's
can't
not
wait.
math. I can't point to the P&L. But where this comes from is I get asked all the time, um, about, and it's from the clients either considering a startup or purchasing a practice, and they'll say, okay, Morgan, you got clients all 50 states. Like, where's the great area? Where should I go? Where folks are doing well? I get that question. I get asked, hey, do you have a special report for pediatric dentists? Because I'm going to be pediatric, so I'm going to be making
Mhm.
more money, kind of thing. Or I'll hear a report, or I'll get a question that, do you have a report just for your clients in California? Because it's like way different out here. And I say, look, the answer is no. Like, we don't. We have one report. In geography and specialty, I think they may influence profitability, but that's not the deal breaker. We have plenty of clients who are specialists that struggle. We have
Mhm.
plenty of clients. Like, one of our longest term clients is in Nob Hill, San Francisco. She recently moved across the bay, but it's like the most expensive city on the planet.
Yeah.
She killed a 55% profit margin for like 10 years. So
Mhm.
geography isn't that's not how we connect the dots. I think we connect the dots with leadership. We have a lot of clients I've known for a long time. I've been with them along with their journey as I've been on my journey, which has been very rewarding. And I've come to the opinion that if we quantify success for a doctor, and let's and we'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to tax, but is it money? Is it time? Is it all the above? If we look at, okay, who's crossed the finish line? Who has the full deal? It's the doctor that runs a tight ship, plain and simple. Like you can tell in me talking with them, I know them real well. You can tell by their numbers. Look, they're an amazing clinician, but they're also an amazing business leader. They know how to inspire their team. Their patients feel comfortable. They lead from the front. They do it all. Those are the doctors that have the high profit margin and the high quality of life. It's not geography. It's not specialty, although that can have an influence. That's the full package. So it is, yes, revenue, expenses, and how well do you lead your practice, in my opinion.
Morgan, I was so happy when I read that and when we were talking about what to bring on, because I see it as well. I tell everybody, I can tell walking into a practice, even before I walk into the practice, if I've met the leader of the practice, I usually can tell if this practice will be successful or not, truly based on the leader at the helm. And it's interesting because I recently did this at our summit. So if people were there, awesome. If they weren't, that's okay too. But we actually broke down, and me and the consultants, we went through all of our clients. Like, we looked at the clients, we looked at past clients, we looked at future clients, we looked at different pieces, what were our best clients, what were our worst clients. And I actually broke down, I'm trying to pull it up here, of like common themes of great practices and like great leadership, and common themes of the not so good. And so some of the things I've seen, and Morgan, I'm super curious to hear like what you'd add to our list, because you see it from a different perspective than we see it. So on my not so good list, these are the ones that like really they always are floundering, is they don't trust their office manager. They're sometimes poor clinicians, like they need to hire somebody else or get some training for that. Poor leaders, they have team turnover constantly. They don't implement strategies. They're highly driven by emotion. They don't look at their numbers or their results. They do a lot of CE, but they never like implement. They have lots of coaches, but they don't trust and execute. They're half in on everything, so they're not like solid on anything. They want to pay to fix the problem with no self-realization, identification that maybe they are the issue. They have ego, fear with no accountability, and there's a lot of blame. Like everybody else is the problem. Are some of the things that I've seen, and I don't know. Like I know I'm putting you on the spot. I have my nice list over here, but is there anything else you see of patterns? Because you and I can both like in our Rolodex of humans,
Right.
we know are not so good leaders, or the practices who aren't as profitable. Are there any other things you've noticed in their leadership that maybe isn't as strong?
Well, yeah, that was a very comprehensive list. Once we're done, I'm gonna write all those down because I think
I'll happily share. I will happily share. And if you get anything else, share back our way too.
If I were to kind of summarize that, if we talk about leadership, it's really about ownership and engagement. You have to own it. Everything's your problem when you're the owner. And there's another podcast I like, and it's not nothing to do with dental. It's all about leadership, and there's a saying, and it's really stuck with me. And I swear I think about this every day, Kiera. When I think about my business and how do we keep doing a good job, is that if there's a problem in your organization, it's a leadership problem. You can trace it all the way back and go any direction you want. It's going to tie back to a leadership problem. So if something is going sideways, it ultimately comes back to your leadership as a business owner. You can't. So maybe the staff, maybe there was a bad patient experience. Something went sideways with the patient. Was that staff trained? Maybe they were trained. Maybe they were not held accountable. Do you have a bad procedure? Maybe the procedure needs adapted. I mean, we think about that all the time, constantly adapting, constantly tweaking. And I think you have to do that in any business. If, like you said in your list there, if people don't want that accountability, there's always making excuses, or they don't want to engage. They say, and maybe they are a good clinician, and they say, I'd rather just be in the operatory, but my staff's a mess. Kiera, come on in here and whip them into shape and let me know when it's all good. That's not how it works. That's not how it works.
Not. I'm only there part-time. I'm not your manager. I'm not your leader. I'm not your
boss.
Right.
Or, you know what? I'm going to have an hour meeting with my accountant, and that should solve it. Like, no, we're going to come up with some action items, and then you need to execute those. So you have to own it. Everything's your problem when you own a business. And if you own it and you engage, then I think we're on the right path to not be on that extensive list that you
Right.
gave, which I just love.
Yeah, no, and I love it. And it just made me actually think of something I heard at a financial conference, and they said EBITDA equals engagement. And I've thought about that a lot because the more engaged your team is, the more engaged you are. Honestly, a lot of higher EBITDA there is. I won't leave our audience hanging. I do have the good list, and maybe you can add to
Mm-hmm.
this too of things you see. So the ones that I found like that truly just knock it out of the park. These are our most successful products. I'm like, what is their DNA makeup that makes them
Mm-hmm.
this great leader? And it's they're great implementers. They allow the teams to be free, like within the parameters. So they've got a great team culture. They're great at decision making. They execute. They're consistent. They roll with the punches. They have long term teams. They make their decisions based on numbers. They're great visionaries. And they know what they're working towards. They don't get distracted. So there's this laser
Mm-hmm.
focus that they have. And on here, I would also say that they have massive ownership. And they also are not afraid to have the uncomfortable conversations with their team.
Mm-hmm.
So like they truly do, they're excellent at it. They might not be excellent communicators, but they're excellent at like tidying it up, driving their team for success.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of the things I see, but I'm curious if there's anything else you'd want to add to that list because I think you're right. But I think that's a DNA makeup, right? It's people who
Mm-hmm.
are disciplined. They're probably going to the gym. They probably have like strong work ethic. They are laser focused. It's just like it's who they are in all the aspects of our life. But I don't think they're necessarily born that way. I think a lot of them can be, but I think a lot of them create that over time as well. Like it's an
Mm-hmm.
evolution of them, not necessarily like, well, if I'm just born a great leader. Like no, they're constantly working on it. But I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good list. If I were to try to tie that together, I would say it's you lead from the front.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I'll just a personal example for me, like responsiveness is a huge part of our culture. Like, if clients reaching out to us, they need to hear back like in a few hours, like today.
Yeah.
Um, but lead from the front. It is not do what I say. It is do what I do and keep up. Keep up with me. Let me show you what I expect. You follow my example and let's go where I'm leading us. I
Mm-hmm.
think is when you own a dental practice, you have to do the same thing, whether that's in the daily huddle. You lead by example. If there's a certain patient experience you want your office to have, you have to lead that. They have to be emulating you and say, I sure hope I can do this as well as the doctor. Lead from the front. I think you also have to make sure your team understands why their work is important.
I agree.
And and I do that all the time. Like, why is our work important? As well, because our clients are these dentists. They're drowning in debt. They don't necessarily learn how to run a dental practice in dental school. They're trying to put it all together to make a nice living, and they have probably 8 or 10 employees that are counting on them for their jobs. So like our work matters. Like what we're working with people's lives here. So you really have to I think articulate why the work's important. And maybe that maybe that's not as challenging in dental practice because everybody knows like it's care, right? They're there to get care. They're in the chair. They're scared. They want to be comfortable and know everything's going to be okay. But so I don't know. I think you got to lead from the front. You got to say, look, let's do what I do and make sure you keep up with me.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think something that I love that you brought this up is I love when I have things internal, as much as it's annoying, that could actually help me become more profitable. It's like, hey,
Hmm.
let me go to the gym and work out to be more disciplined. Let me read
Hmm.
leadership books to learn how to lead. Let me practice uncomfortable conversations. Let me practice my decision making. And the reality is, like, you becoming this person and leadership will equate to higher profitability. It's wild. Like, I look back at maybe not so strong of leadership days and my business and profitability, I think definitely mirrored and matched where I
Hmm.
was. And so also for us to say like, hey, how do I maybe get to the next level? How can you evolve as a leader as well and be a bit stronger of that good
Hmm.
version rather than the not so good version? I think is
Yeah,
really powerful, Morgan.
I think, and you really have to recognize whatever industry you're in, that your technical skill and your leadership skill are completely different. You have to
100%.
invest in those skills to acquire those and to maintain them. And just because just you could be like the most amazing CPA, just brilliant practitioner, that doesn't mean you're a good leader. You could be the most amazing clinician and just do the most amazing work. That doesn't mean you're going to be running a great dental practice. You have to invest in those skills. Just being a smart being a smart person with some big degrees, that doesn't do it. You have to acquire those skills. And I didn't realize, I mean, when I was a younger guy in the Navy, I mean, I learned all this, and back then I was just trying to do a good job and, not get killed and try and make it all happen. And I didn't realize all these amazing lessons and training I was learning, because leadership is, that's first and foremost what we're there to do. And so I was very fortunate in that regard, but I don't, you can't, no matter what business you can't rest on your laurels. You got to always be thinking about leadership. Am I being a good leader? Okay, this is going sideways. I need to lead the team back. I can't just, write a memo. Hey, everybody, this is where we need to be. Follow me, keep up with me.
Yeah. No, Morgan, that was such a brilliant piece. And I really loved how you just highlighted it. And so fun to see that what we see on the team side and the success of the growth and the production and the collections also now correlates with your financial P&L. Which I think is just magic, and it all just ties together. But as you listen to this list, and Morgan and I talking about it, I also want to just say, like, if this does not light you up and you're like, oh gosh, that's okay. You actually can just be an amazing clinician and have somebody actually be the great leader. Just because you opened the practice and you do the dentistry does not mean you need to be the leader of the practice. So I've seen some doctors actually be great implementers. Like, they actually would rather execute, implement, do all the ideas and have somebody else be the visionary. That's okay too. And I think like my best thing is know thyself and be free. But if you want to be more profitable, look at this. And I want to take like a sharp right turn, Morgan, and talk taxes. It's like, I didn't know how to awkwardly like transition. So I'm just going to but I want to talk taxes because I'm like, this also ties into the discipline of leadership, the ownership of leadership, and like being freaking savvy to learn how to do taxes better. Like, Morgan, I had this client the other day and we were talking and we built this like cute little overhead scorecard for people. We have the EBITDA on there. It comes from the CPAs. So we're like, just make it very simple, like black and white. And then I was like, wait a second, I should throw a tax bucket on there. So like what you're getting paid for your W-2 plus what your profit is, like that gets taxed. I have a doctor. She has been an owner, we're talking 20 plus years. She's like, Kiera, I never knew that my profit had to get taxed. Like, I never knew that extra cash. Like, I just thought that was cash that came to me. And I'm like, this is why doctors are always broke, because they don't know how this works out. So I'm super excited to talk about tax planning. It's mid-year. Let's make sure you're not crying in December.
Right.
And like pop in the confetti.
Crying in December. And if you recall, my topic was just kind of the psychology of tax. And again, this has evolved over time with a lot of conversations, and I think
coming in is like the wise sage over there, Morgan. Like, you're just hanging out over there.
We're always trying to, I think about my conversations. How do we kind of empower these dentists to achieve this? And it's all through, I think, education. You got to understand why. Like this doctor, 20 years, like didn't understand.
I was like,
every initial consultation I'm having now with a startup doctor, we do a tax 101, just real quick. It takes me like 5 minutes. Like let's get our hands on some concepts here. Why I think this is important is to really understand and talk about tax, just kind of how it makes us feel, is because we've had some instances where you have a doctor, and let's just say on our previous conversation, this is how we're going to tie it together, right? So we have the doctors on that secondary list, like they're rock star, they're killing it, they're making tons of cash, right? They're engaging the right people, they got the right people in place, and it ultimately results in a lot of success. Okay, I've seen people do that, but then when it comes time for tax, they lose sight of all that, and they get just really obsessed about that tax bill, and they lose what I'll think of as like peace and fulfillment. And like we talked just at the start of the call, I recently got remarried, and my wife and I we talk about that a lot, peace and fulfillment. Why do we have that in life? And that's what we're working for. And I think when you own a business, you're working towards something, right? And we want to have that peace and fulfillment. And I've seen that just get destroyed with people because they get very emotional and overly focused on their tax. And I see the logic just sort of exit stage left, and we just end up with this very like emotional reaction to tax. And who I tend to really direct this conversation to is not necessarily what you just described. Well, that's kind of an interesting one. Usually if someone's been making great money 20 years, they kind of know the program. It is, Kiera, it's the newer owners making real money for the first time in their lives.
Yeah.
And
100%.
that is where there's an adjustment. There's a mental journey they have to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I thought today, like, I guarantee you we have some listeners, as soon as they heard tax, they're waiting, like, what's on their mind is, well, what's the secrets? How do I save more on tax? Well, I'll tell you,
It does feel like the
it
CPA's
does.
hold back the secret rule.
So,
I mean, tell me your Harry Potter rules there, Morgan. I
right?
just want to
So
know.
we're going
I
to
need to
get to
find
that.
one CPA that just knows the secrets of the trade.
All right. Well, we'll get to that. But before we do that, I thought, let's have some straight talk, right?
Yeah.
Let's have some straight talk on tax. Why is this emotional? Why is this hard? Let's just take the journey of a doctor that, is an associate doing pretty well with their W-2, right? And we all think we all have W-2s. And you have mandatory withholding, right? It comes out of your check, gets fired off to the government. You get your net check, and you might look at your paycheck and go, what's all this stuff? I don't get, well, I got my net check. I'm going to plan my life around this net check, right? And then we do the tax return. There's always a little settle up. You might owe a little, get a little money back. Like, always hope to get a little money back. But generally, you just plan your life with never having your hands on that money.
Totally.
As a W-2. So now we own a business. You get all that money. And then we now have to turn around and pay it back.
Yep.
Now, keep in mind, your tax rates, okay? If you are married, Google the 2025 tax rates, right?
Yep.
That's what they are. That's what they are if you're an employee. That's what they are if you're the owner of a pass-through business. They are the same. But that act of having to turn around and write a check just is you gotta become comfortable with that, and it's an adjustment. And here's the other thing, where if we just, okay, let's take all our emotions about tax, let's just kind of put it over the side, and let's just talk very logically. If you're going to make 3 times as much money, what's also going to be 3 times as much?
Tax.
Your tax. But it's actually maybe a little bit more, right? We got a progressive tax system, right?
We do. It's awesome.
So, I think when people become high earners and they go through the grieving process, and I guarantee you, I'll just talk through this briefly, but Kiera, you and I both been through this.
Yes.
And the doctors that are killing it and making lots of money, they've probably been through it too. But if we think about the grieving process, what's the first step? All right, it's denial. Mm-hmm. It's the first year you went from making 200 grand as an associate and now making 700 grand. And we've already written off the equipment, and now I got 700 grand income. And you get your tax plan, and you're like, what? This isn't for me. Honey, our email got hacked. Like, we got this can't be right. This isn't mine. You go full on denial. This can't be right. And then we're like, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That is your tax plan. And then we immediately go to anger. Like, this can't, I'm so mad. I thought Morgan
was a different CPA, Morgan. I'm finding a different Harry Potter wizard. I need someone better than you.
Yeah, I thought Morgan was this cool guy. I'm mad at him.
Not today.
You get angry. You're like, what the heck? I got this, tax bill. So you get kind of angry, and then you go into bargaining. And you say, you know what? I'm gonna go buy a CEREC machine tomorrow. Say, okay. do you need that? Do you do a lot of crowns? So you get all, I'm going to do this, and then, and where people can really get in trouble is when they stop making their estimated payments. Like, well, this can't be right. This can't be right. I'm going to buy this and this and this. And, and then we start, oh, there's a 6,000-pound truck. I'm going to go buy this big truck. And I kind of joke around.
G-Wagon right now. I'm going to brand it.
Yeah. So you get into bargaining, right? And then you're like, okay, well, gosh, yeah, I don't need any other equipment. I'm already doing the stuff. And then you get into depression. You're like, really? Am I gonna? I guess this just stinks, And then you finally get to acceptance, and you realize that if you're a high earner, there is a corresponding bill. Now that can be managed. There are ways for proper perfectly legal tax avoidance, so get into the so-called secrets. But you go through this journey, and this has just been my 15-year research project. I've been through it personally myself, and I'm a CPA, and I still writing this check, dang, but so that's what we have to, I think, wrap our head around. You understand that, and I encourage people, look, if you're a dentist, and maybe this dentist joins the 7-figure club, right? You got 7-figure profit. That's pretty amazing, right? That's really good income. But you will have a 6-figure tax bill.
You will.
And that's okay. That's okay. And you got to get through to acceptance and take comfort in that you are engaged to take advantage of the legal opportunities that are out there for proper tax avoidance. And that's we talk about the secrets. I see these clowns on YouTube of like, only I know the secrets of the tax code. I mean, if you see that, just run. There are no secrets. They're all well known. Like I know all our competitors in the dental field, and I'm on friendly terms with many of them. And we all know these. We all know the stuff that can be done. Legal tax avoidance. So here's we'll call it the secret, right?
Everybody's perking up right now, Morgan.
Everyone's perking. Here's the secrets, okay? Here's the secret. When you have a pass-through business, which is what these dental practices are, right? So the business, and this will shed some light on your client of 20 years, right? Your business does not pay income tax. The business tax return is math. It's absurdly complex math, but it quantifies the profit that's passed through and gets listed on your personal tax return. And you owe income tax on that profit. That's what it means by pass through. And it's all ordinary income tax. There's no special tax rate for business owners. It's ordinary income tax. So how do we save money? Here's the secret. We have to capture as many expenses that we're otherwise incurring and capture those as business deductions. When we do that, that lowers profit. Less profit passes through to the personal tax return. You pay less tax. That's the secret. So you have to execute the strategies, right? The home office is perfect for doctors. Totally substantiated, totally mainstream deduction. That's what justifies the car. You can deduct a car, but that means you have to be engaged. You have to get the mile IQ. You have to understand what is your business percentages. You have to do this right. You have to document it. There's things you have to do right. Take your board meeting. If the cash flow allows, have a qualified retirement plan. Take full advantage of that. If you're okay with having staff over to your house, have those meetings at home and have the office rent it from you. So these aren't, people know these. This isn't, I'd love to tell you I'm some genius that went and studied the tax code and formulated all these myself. This is out there. What you're engaging with your CPA is folks that will actually bring this to you and do it. But ultimately, the doctor has to do it. And what I think about is if someone thinks, well, I'm just going to have an hour meeting with my accountant at the end of the year and they're just going to take care of all this. That's like saying, you know what? I know I need to work out and eat right to be healthy, but I'm just going to go meet with my doc this fall and that should do it. Maybe they'll give me a pill that'll make me in shape and healthy. But no, you got to do the stuff, right? So if your accountant tells you, hey, look, take a board meeting, document it properly. There's a proper way to do it. You got to do it. That's how we say it, the proper legal avoidance. If your accountant comes to you and says, look, it's time to be an S corp because the profit is appropriate, you got to follow the instruction. There's a procedure there, and it's going to save a lot of money on self-employment payroll tax if it's done correctly. You got to listen, but you got to engage. There's action items, and so we every September I made a checklist. Again, Navy guy, right? I got a checklist. Log in, do the checklist. I call it our business tax savings maximizer. That's the flashiest, catchiest name I could think of for it. But log in and do it. That's the secret. So. If for those listeners that are waiting for the secret, that's it, right? We gotta capture expenses as business deductions, and there is action items for the doctor. It requires that engagement. And to circle back to what you said earlier, you can't come into the office and just fix it for them. They've got responsibilities and things to do too, and that's the same with tax planning.
Totally. Morgan, I thought that was such a beautiful way. And as you were going through the phases of grief, I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely lived all of those. Thanks for kicking it off with Top Gun, ending with like tax strategy. Thanks for
Right.
sharing some of the tips. But truly super honored to work with you and love what you guys are doing for dentists out there.
Kiera, I always enjoy our visits and look forward to each one. So I appreciate you having me. I really enjoyed it.
Of course. And for all of you listening, thank you for listening. And I'll catch you next time on the Dental 18 podcast.